People say cats can't communicate. What do you think about that?
They are constantly communicating. It's not always vocal, though. Like, they
Hmm.
are giving off body language signals, and they're doing things like doing what we would call distance increasing behaviors, which could be things like scratching or biting, but it may also be trying to wiggle out of your arms or walk away
Mm,
from you. Or they may just be like looking around and being like, I'm really uncomfortable.
hmm.
And I see a lot of videos online where people's cats, to probably you or I, are visibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
People will be like, the cat is running away, or the cat is biting or scratching, and they're like,
Hmm.
what a jerk. And it's like, no, if anyone, hang on, if anyone hears the jerk, it's you, because
Yeah.
you're not listening to your cat when they're saying, hey, buddy, I'm uncomfortable. I'm attempting
Hmm.
to de-escalate the situation. I also look at it with things like preferences for tastes or textures. My local Buy Nothing group, not that long ago, there was someone who was giving away a bunch of like one particular flavor of a
Oh,
cat food
uh-huh.
that came in a multi-pack. And they were like, yeah, my cat, he's such a and he doesn't like this. And it's like, is he an or does he just have a flavor preference, which is
Right.
not bad?
Uh-huh.
That's that doesn't make him a jerk. It's like
Mm-mm.
I don't like mushrooms. Does that make me a terrible person? The answer is no to that, by the way. There are other things that make me a terrible person, but not the mushroom thing.
Abby's a perfect example of a cat who communicates quite a bit. So she makes little squeaky meow noises, and she will actually walk to whatever thing it is that she wants or that she needs at the time. I can ask her if she wants to be picked up and put my hands on her sides. And if she looks up at me and stays standing between my hands, then I'll scoop her up. But people think there's something wrong with their cat if their cat doesn't like being picked up. In fact, it's pretty common for cats not to like being picked up because most cats are going to feel really restrained if you're picking them up and holding them. Some people are like,
Well,
my cat likes to be held like a baby. Have you seen those videos and pictures? Yeah, where people will pick up their cat and they'll like hold him like Simba, under the front arms, or they'll hold him like
and the
that,
cat
like
is
a
like,
baby. The cat is freaking out and they're like, my cat likes it. It's like, no, you like it and you want to feel like a good person. So you're saying your cat likes it, but actually your cat's face is saying that they're really not enjoying this interaction.
and let's also be very clear about something. You can do things that are not so kind to your cat because you don't know better. You can make mistakes, and it doesn't make you a bad person when you start looking into it and you start reflecting on it. Do you start thinking about, oh, maybe they don't like this very
Mm-hmm.
much. I should do something differently? Or are you like, oh, they don't like this very much. Okay, whatever. Like it
Yeah.
forcing the cat who doesn't really have a choice and doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
have that much control over their world to do things that purely benefit you, that becomes problematic. Again, I don't want anyone to feel unnecessarily guilty because that's not the
Mm-hmm.
point of this. The point
No.
is you can do better, and it's
Yeah.
okay to be like, I did things in the past that I recognize were not that great. I look back on some of my pictures that I have of Zoloft when he went to meet Santa, and like the first time he was actually like, oh, hey, like people paying attention to me. And then people with dogs came in and he started
Mm-hmm.
getting nervous, and I look back on it and I'm like, okay. And I hadn't started working with cats professionally around the time that like I took him for the second time, and some of the pictures he looks really nervous in them. That I didn't know better, and I
Right.
wish I would have recognized it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've wanted to get pictures with Santa with poutine and Prozac. This year I was like, oh, maybe I should. And then I was like, wait, Poutine is still traumatized from fire alarms, and we're still working on getting him used to people. That wouldn't be fair to him. It
Right.
wouldn't be
Right.
delightful. So I will probably at some point, I don't know, like Photoshop myself into Santa or something. I don't know.
Yes, I think that's brilliant.
There are other ways that we can both experience that delight and that joy and those special moments without causing our cat stress.
I used to pick up Jasper quite frequently to get him out of trouble, or I would just pick him up when I wanted to snuggle. And he would meow in protest, and I started paying attention to that and being like, he doesn't like this. And so I made a promise to myself and to Jasper that I would like actually think things through before picking him up and ask myself, do I need to pick him up in this situation, or is there an alternative? And so now the majority of the time, like 9 times out of 10, I can lead him somewhere, or if he doesn't have training in place, I can lure him somewhere with treats, but I don't actually need to pick him up the majority of the time. The few times that I have is when he's like asleep in his little hideaway closet on top of a blanket and he doesn't want to get out. So I'd scoop the blanket that's underneath him and put the blanket onto the bed.
I try and give my cats a lot of choice. Poutine will be like, okay, I'm gonna go like get on the counters. If I was just cooking, I will be like, okay, I can't really have you up there. So I will go and I will lift him off then. Or if there's something where it's either actively dangerous or it could turn dangerous or they might break something, then I will lift them off. But that doesn't happen a ton. I tend to try and focus on, okay, how can I get them to do what I want without being rude to them? Again, sometimes Poutine will be over, like, harassing one of my plants. And I know that that's something that makes me really annoyed or angry even at times. And rather than letting things escalate to that point, I try and be like, okay, we're going to try and redirect, or we're going to change the situation. Sometimes I need to distract them or give them something to do, or I will be like, okay, he's probably not going to love that I gently pick him up, but I do it for the minimum amount of time that I can, and I try and sit him down right away, and I make it so that afterwards he gets lots of attention and praise, and even if it's not ideal, to me, that's still better than doing something that like I'm intentionally trying to scare him. I need to recognize my own emotions and when I'm getting to the point where I'm upset, because that affects my cats. I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize, is that like your cat's behavior isn't just dependent on your cat, it's on you. And a lot of times the change doesn't need to happen with your cat. Your cat is just being a cat. The change needs to happen with you and what you're doing. We've all done things that aren't so great, and recognizing that like what you did in the past, it was problematic, and admitting that and actively taking steps to improve, that's a sign of like maturity as far as I'm concerned. And it will, like, on a practical level, it will help get your relationship improved with your cats and get their behavior improved.
I hear people talking about cats, that aren't necessarily as aware of body language, that'll say like, my cat invites me for belly rubs and then bites my hand, or like, my cat attacked me out of nowhere. What do you say to people?
I usually try and phrase it as like, cats are really good at communicating. You may not be picking up on the like signals that they're giving off. I had a client the other day who they were talking about, it was their cat that was biting, and they were like, oh, it's out of nowhere. And I was like, okay. They were like, I sent you some videos, and then we pulled it up and we watched it together. And I pretty quickly was like, oh yeah, their tail is really, oh, Prozac, thank you for typing that. That was very helpful. I very quickly was like, oh, the cat's tail was and again, the client was like, I didn't see anything. It's coming out of nowhere. And this is a client that I've worked with like for a long time. They're really good at working through things. They just didn't notice one piece of body language.
Interesting.
Once they start recognizing the body language signals, or they have it pointed out to them, you start seeing it. I also will see this with people who, if we're talking about like inter-cat conflict and we're looking for like subtle signs that their cats are stressed, I'll point out that
tongue
where
flick,
like
nose lick, we can't do it.
Yeah,
I love
can't
it.
Really
that
do
looks
it.
very silly. I love it.
I will point out things like that, and people will be like, oh, I've never noticed that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really subtle piece of body language. So it made sense that they'd be like, really that?
Yeah.
But like
Oh,
they started
whiskers.
being like, oh my God, I see this. Hello, Prozac. Once you start seeing it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. You're just paying more attention
Mm-hmm.
to it. Pick out some specific pieces of body language with your cat. Like maybe you start by just paying attention to their ears or their
Mm-hmm.
tail or their eyes or their body positioning.
Mm-hmm.
And start with just one thing and, pay attention to it and try and figure out, did they do this before they bite or like right after I do something that they maybe don't like? Is this maybe a sign that they're
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable? And you have to also be honest with yourself where even if you don't want to see the signs and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to see that, okay, this is making your cat uncomfortable and it's something that you're like, but I love doing this. You need to be fair to your cat and recognize that maybe I should change my own behavior.
Yeah. If you grew up with a cat who was one of the rare cats who actually enjoys having their belly rubbed, most cats don't. But if that's what you grew up with, then that's what you think is normal. And so you're expecting to see those kinds of signals and you're not looking for the warning signs. Or if you grew up with a cat who, anytime they didn't want to interact, they would just jump down off your lap and walk away. And now you have one that has learned to choose violence anytime they feel threatened.
Yep.
You know? Like, don't die, Joey. um, like, I have a cat who, for whatever reason, based on his previous experience, because cats aren't a blank slate when they come to you, even if they're a kitten. He had some experiences in his past where he learned that maybe the warning signs, the distance increasing behaviors weren't respected, weren't attended to. And so he went pretty quickly to defensive aggression. And it wasn't that he was mean, that was what he had learned. And so when I'm like petting him, the warning signs were more subtle. And sometimes they weren't there. And the warning was just, oh, ticking timer. Like, this cat only enjoys this much time of interaction, and I can predict that after this much interaction he's going to get overwhelmed, and if I insist on continuing to pet him after that, he's not enjoying it and he's going to turn around and bite me, and it's my fault. It's not that there's something wrong with him, that he's feeling overstimulated. It's my fault for not respecting his personal space and boundaries.
I was at this event and this person came up to talk to me and was like, I have cat that is hissing at my partner and how do I get them to stop? And I was like, well, I can't really, give you something quick because I don't know the full situation. And she was like, well, what about the spray bottle? And I was like, no, that's not a good idea. You don't actually want the cat to not hiss in a majority of like you want the cat to hiss.
Mm-hmm.
They're missing out on the fact that hissing is a communication tool for the cats, that the cat is communicating something that they're uncomfortable. It's not that the cat is actually, I mean, hissing, like, but it's really not an aggressive behavior. It's a defensive
it's
behavior.
A warning sign.
Yeah, and you want the cat to give you those warnings. Like, you want them to communicate with you. It's like people who try and use like shock collars on dogs when they're barking or other things like that. It's like, no, like, you don't want to shock the dog or try and stop them from barking because otherwise they're going to skip right to, rather than, trying to communicate and be like, hey, I'm uncomfortable, back off, they're going to go immediately into the behaviors that you don't like as much, the aggressive behaviors. And we see this with cats a lot where people will be like, I don't want my cat to hiss, or they'll start like trying to, focus too much on suppressing the behavior. And it really does benefit you to respect your cat's boundaries and to listen to them. Like, it ends up working better because you do end up getting what you want. And the attempts to suppress things, they're gonna end up causing problems later.
I hear adults sometimes tell young children, when they're angry, use your words, and hissing is the cat using their words. And we don't want to take that away from them, because then they have more limited tools for communication. You don't want your cat to hiss? Stop doing the behavior that's scaring them and they won't hiss as often. You don't want to take the hiss away. You want to listen to the hiss, and that's how you get the hisses to stop, is you respect, like you said. They will learn that you're going to respect their communication, and you're going to have such better interactions with them from that point forward. You don't need to punish your cat to teach them that what they're doing is wrong, because cats don't have a concept of right or wrong. They only have a concept of they do associate things, but they don't always make the associations you want. So if you spray them with the spray bottle when they're on the kitchen counter, they probably aren't going to associate, like, the human doesn't want me to be on this surface, so I should find another surface to be on. The association they're probably going to make is the human is scary, and whenever the human reaches for this device, I'm going to experience something unpleasant. Therefore, whenever you move your arm to reach for something, they're going to flinch. That's not the association you want. And that's not the kind of relationship we want to have with our cats.
I found a study from, it wasn't that long ago, but they looked at like some of the factors that influenced aggressive behaviors in cats. And one of the things that they found was the use of positive punishment. So spray bottles, because, okay, hang on, everyone listening to this, spray bottles are not negative reinforcement, at least probably not in the way that you are referring to them. You are positively punishing if it works. And again, that's assuming it works, because you are adding in something that the cat doesn't like and the behavior decreases. Positive punishment. Positive means something is added. It doesn't mean good or bad. Do not ever misuse the term negative reinforcement to describe a spray bottle, or me and or my ghost at some point in the future will come and haunt you. Anyway, the study found that cats that people try to use punishment on them were more likely to aggress towards their humans or towards 100%. Other cats, because attempts at communication were being ignored. You are basically saying this is your only option.
I'm sure you've heard people say, you can tell a cat's personality based on their sex and based on their coat color and things like that.
I always hate to be a fun killer, but people will be like,
oh no, you like it, Joey, admit it.
I do like being a fun killer.